Well, Sharifa, welcome back. And I'm excited to hear you explain to us a little bit about the sense of touch.
Great, great. Lovely to be here. And touch is the beginning. Touch is the beginning. It is the first sense that the baby experiences through the uterine wall. And we all know, having been pregnant, how lovely it is to touch the baby and the loveliness that we feel, the baby feels that. The baby feels that. Touch is called an emotional sense. And we know, certainly in this time of pandemic, when touch is so um, uh, we cherish so much those in our lives that we can touch, because we can't touch the world. We can't touch others that are just even one small rung out from us. And so we can feel, when someone who loves us touches us, we can feel that electricity, we can feel that magnetism, we can feel the love inside of our bodies. It is an emotional sense. um, Loving touch is the basis for the healthy development of all the other senses, because touch is the foundation of meaning. The way that the child understands, the way the child takes meaning from the world is through touching it. Understanding meaning comes to the child in different ways as the child moves along developmentally. But the first way of taking meaning from the world is through touch. And as we said, here hidden away is the love factor. So loving touch. And we know that babies who are not touched with love, that the rest of the senses and the rest of brain development, it's a rocky road. It's a rocky road when there's not that loving touch connection. Um, One of the most crucial pieces of touch is that touch is the way that the baby begins to have, what shall we say, boundaries. The baby is born united with the mother. The baby is united with the mother for those months in utero, and and the baby experiences touch in utero. And then when the baby is born, it takes a little while, but eventually the baby begins to understand and other, self and other through touch. They experience their own touch in a different way than they experience the touch of the parent, of the caregiver. And so this sense of touch is so crucial for the child to have a sense, the most primary sense of self. And it's the beginning of separation. It's the beginning of coming out of that angelic state, shall we say, of union, and coming toward separation. Of course, with a fully developed and well developed self, then we as adults can move more toward back into that state of communion with each other. Let's see. And the way that this sense of self, this rudimentary sense of self transforms is, we could say that this is the most foundational sense, and it therefore transforms to what Rudolf Steiner calls the highest sense, which is the sense of self. And when we have this well developed sense of self, then it is through the sense of one's own self that we actually perceive other selves, that we actually understand that people are separate from us. They have a different experience of reality. And then we can kind of slip inside of their skins and know what that feels like. Yeah. So this is this transformation from the most foundational to the highest. Um, and what does this look like in our babies? It looks exactly exactly like what we see. Our babies reach out for everything. They reach out to touch, to take it, and then it goes into the mouth. The mouth is touching. The mouth is an organ of touch for the baby. Um, and not just our babies, but our toddlers are also, they're comforted by our touch. Um, and what we need to understand is that um, when they are out of sorts, first we gather ourselves together. We take that breath. We bring ourselves into a state of harmony, interior harmony. And then we, through touch, they come back in to that field of resonance, to that heart field, and they're brought back by our touch. So one of the things that this tells us is that we really have to take care of ourselves, that our care for ourselves is the way that we can care for our children through touch. We gather ourselves together through our breath, the way that the breath moves in and out through the heart, the touch of the breath in and out through the heart. And then we bring the child into that. Even when a toddler begins to move away from us when they can walk, they usually stay within an arm's, stay within a touch. They're one touch away from us. You know, eventually they move a little further out, but there's an orbit that their child's orbit gets a little bit larger and a little bit larger, but it is for many years that orbit of touch. Um, and so what are the best ways that we can support touch in our child? We just continue to touch them with love, skin to skin when the babies are tiny and brand new. Um, Another way that we support them is not only by holding them and touching them, but also when they're filled full of our touch, then we lay them on their back on the floor on a nice rug, and then the child begins to have this experience of touch of self and touch of other. So the child sees the ball, begins to move. Movement is a response to touch, and then takes the ball and experiences the ball. So we continue to not only we touch them, but we want to look at the way the world touches them back. So we want to be um, conscientious with the toys, with whatever the play materials are that we give them, and also that we don't overwhelm them. That touches all of the senses are very new. It's easy for us to say, oh, we want to feed the senses. And for an adult, it wouldn't be overwhelming, but for a child, one toy, just one little thing for the baby to strive toward, and then to touch. Um, and again, take take our babies, take our children, take our toddlers, take every age child outdoors. Outdoors, they have leaves, grass, sandbox, water, mud. Outdoors is the answer. When it's not a nice day and they can't go outdoors, look at the play materials that we have for them and see if we can really hone our play materials so that what they have is made of natural materials, so that they have that, the ancient senses remember, remember the touch of wood, remember the touch of wool, remember the touch of fibers. Um, and how is it? One way that we can see the sense of touch as our children grow older, when their own sense of touch is very well developed, then because touch um, focuses in on this sense of self, we can see, it depends on the age. For different children have this at different ages, but the child can actually begin to be touched by the love of another child. They can be touched by the thought of another child. Do you see? It moves into a relational kind of touching. And the wonderful thing that we see in Waldorf classrooms worldwide is that um, not only is the teacher attentive to touch with the children, I think that Miss Holly has a little hand washing and then a little lotion, touching the children in this way, but also looking at the play materials, that the play materials are really gathered with this sense of that the child is still touching the natural world.
Thank you, Sharifa. That was a very full and rich description of touch, and I learned a lot in that. So thank you for all of that.
Good, good. I
Um,
am so glad. And we have more that we can do together.
we have more, so we'll take a little break and we'll come back.
Great.